Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Gilliland, attorney and blogger on Bowtie Law. With me today is Mike Wade, CTO of Planet Data, and we're going to talk about processing mobile data. Mike, how you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about processing mobile data and the challenges with that. So, could you help educate our listeners?
Sure. There's a couple of major challenges with mobile data. One is recognizing, which data is relevant to you and to your particular case. There's a broad range of different metadata out there, a lot of different devices, and you need to keep it within scope of what you're looking for. So that's the really first challenge. And the second challenge is collecting that data. Lots of different tools. You really need people who understand them. And third, once you get the data, putting it in a format that makes it really usable for you is part of your ECA, your case analysis, and building your case, and then as part of your review.
Well, let's break this down. Let's talk about the different types of metadata with mobile because most of our listeners are familiar with traditional e-discovery that you have two from author, recipient, CC, time sent, date created, all of that. But there's more with mobile. Can you enlighten us?
Yeah, sure. Some of the big things that you see with mobile data is just the richness of the social communication networks out there. So there's a lot of instant messaging of different types. You have Snapchat that goes away in theory. So you have different kinds of communications that are taking place, and all that data is delivered in somewhat different ways on the mobile devices. So getting a handle around those different pieces of communication, because that's typically what we're talking about, is really important. So the metadata that's represented by each can be very different looking. So you need something that's going to bring that all together into a common format so that's easy to search and easy to work. You don't have to be an expert in Snapchat or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it may be. So uh, we call it metadata normalization. So that's really one of the key things. But then, finally, the other big issue is there's just so much stuff out there. Like, every internet connection you might set up has its own set of metadata that's going to get pulled. Was the data deleted? Often we get things they call like carved strings. And these are just little tidbits that are left over from a variety of different applications that are there. We recognize they're data objects of maybe some value and we pull them in, but it's not always clear where they came from, what the provenance of those things was. So, again, understanding those pieces and having metadata that'll help guide you through that process is really key to success.
Yeah. Why else is data normalization helpful?
Yeah, so when you get into your early stages and you're trying to do searching, um, you could have tens of thousands of different kinds of metadata fields that represent all kinds of nuances of the data. So what you want though is to be able to work within your standard framework, like you talked about before. Is it a sender, a recipient, a BCC or a CC? Uh, dates are really critical. Is it a date created, or is it date that the person actually sent the chat versus when they sent an email? You'd like all that stuff under a common heading. So if you don't manage all that data into these standardized metadata fields, it's going to be very difficult to search, and you're going to miss things, or you're going to spend an awful lot of time just painfully stepping through millions of records trying to figure it all out, which is not easy to do, and it's very expensive.
Well, let's take a look at those millions of records and how can we apply early case assessment technology to help narrow that data set to what's actually relevant.
Sure. So one of the key things is being able to understand, what I call the provenance of the data itself. What applications did it come out with? So one of the things that we do, we allocate that this metadata came from this kind of application. So first of all, you can start dividing and conquering by pushing out metadata from applications you're really not interested in. Do you really need to follow spell check, for example, and all the history of spell check that anybody did, and or GPS locations that you may have traveled to over the years? So you'd like to be able to filter those things out. So having really good metadata allows you to do that very immediately, and that can reduce the amount of data you're having to deal with dramatically right up front. Secondly, when you're doing the metadata searches, you want that clear across the rich across all these applications you now want to include. You don't want to have to search 50 different fields and get a lot of false positives or miss things because you weren't aware of what those fields all were. So that's why the normalization in the search and ECA process is so important. By that, you can now narrow down the scope to what's relevant to your particular case in that or that matter. So, and that's where ECA can really benefit from this approach.
Well, Mike, that's really fascinating. How can people learn more about mobile processing?
Well, we have a great website, and if you go to planetdata.com, you can look on our website and find some very good resources there. And you can certainly contact us. There are also other vendors that make collection tools that have good write-ups on it as well.
Well, that is very fascinating. I know it's a matter of time before someone has a white paper on periscope discovery, and give it time. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and everyone, thank you for watching.
Thank you.